Okay, I am going to call to order the Murray City Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, January 6, 2022. It is 6:30 p.m. Present this evening, we have Commissioners Jake Pearson, Lisa Malkiewicz, Ned Hacker will be joining us in just a second, Jeremy Lowry, and I am Maren Patterson, and excused tonight is Travis Ney. From staff, we have Susan Nixon and Zachary Smallwood, and Jared Hall, and maybe Bryant Farnsworth will be joining us. We want to welcome the public. Thank you for being here with us this evening. We are always grateful to have you participating in our meetings. Some etiquette items to review. We ask that you take a moment to silence your cell phones. If you do need to take a call, we would ask that you would step into the hallway. And when it comes time to make a comment on an agenda item, we will open the meeting for public comment for that item, and we would ask you come to this podium and state your name and address into the microphone because we are recording this meeting for the minutes. So we will start with our business items. Our first item is approval of the minutes from our December 16th, 2021 meeting. Have all the commissioners had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
And we had just some kind of text changes in the pre-meeting. Are there any other corrections or changes you would like to make to the minutes?
No.
All right, is there a motion?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the Plan Commission meeting minutes from Thursday, December 16th with corrections that we discussed in pre-meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to our conflict of interest. Do any commissioners have a conflict of interest with any of the agenda items this evening?
No.
No, neither do I. All right. Agenda item number 3, approval of findings of fact. Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to review the findings and facts and conclusions for Wonder Bloom Preschool and IMC Central Lab expansion?
Yes.
Are there any changes or corrections?
No.
Or a motion?
I'll do it. I'll make a motion. Do I need to do these separate? Can I do them together? I can do them together. I'll make a motion that we approve the findings of facts and conclusions for the applicant Sarah Stone, Project Wonder Bloom, and for the applicant Corey Crackcroft, Intermountain Healthcare for Project IMC Central Lab expansion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. We will move on to our conditional use permits this evening. First up, we have a conditional use permit for a contractor business and warehouse for Garrett Timmerman and Curtis Minor Architecture. Are the applicants here this evening? Okay, well, we'll have a...
I'm the engineer for this.
Okay, are you representing the applicant? Great. We'll have a presentation by staff.
Okay. Wow, that's really close to my face. Sorry about that. I'm yelling at you. So this is a conditional use permit request for a new office warehouse and for a contractor business at 5310 South Riley Lane. So you can see it's located here just, you can see on the screen, this is 5300 South in this top left-hand corner. If you'll remember, we've previously approved some medical offices over here to the right. This is just a vacant holdover parcel that is owned by the same property owners that own this building to the south. It is in the MG zone, which is our manufacturing general zone. So constructing a warehouse building is a permitted use. However, any new construction requires a site plan review. So what we decided to do as staff is, because this required a conditional use permit because of the tenant going into the warehouse, we brought these both before you to the commission to satisfy both the site plan review and the and the contractor business. So here is a layout of the building, pretty basic. It's about 10,000 square feet. Most of that is made up in warehouse space with a small office space with 2 floors. I'll get to that in just a minute. something I tried new this time around is actually to put the little site plan in the actual map so you kind of get an idea of where it is. The reason I decided to do this is because you can see here the access to this building is located kind of above the E here. And you can see the parking that's along the south side of the building. So as a condition of approval, we're requesting that an easement be granted for access to use this access point here so that they don't lose access to that parking. I just said access a bunch of times. I'm sorry. I'm not used to wearing a mask for a while, so I'm kind of out of breath. Some elevations of the building. So this is the front and rear. The bottom picture is the front. You can see that 2 stories there. The back of the building, just solid masonry, very, very traditional warehouse type building. We'll have a few overhead doors located there. So this is the layout of the building. As you can see, these dashed lines, this is the first floor here. And then over onto the right is the second floor, which is mostly made up of office uses. They have allowed it to potentially be used as a separate tenant going into the future. You can kind of see that with these dashed walls and future warehouse space. But from talking to the applicants, I believe they're just going to be using it all at this point. So, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit to allow the office warehouse and the contractor's business at the property. The property 5310 South Riley Lane, subject to the 10 conditions outlined in front of you. Any questions I can answer at this time? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We would have the representative or the applicant to come forward. Great. Yeah. Come on up and you can state your name and address into the microphone for the record.
Okay. My name is Garrett Timmerman. I'm the principal architect at Curtis Minor Architecture and have been asked to come and represent the project today. Do you want a home address or a work address?
A work address is
A
fine.
work address. Okay. 233 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard in Pleasant Grove, Utah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And have you had an opportunity to review these conditions of approval?
We've circulated that with the contractor, the owner, the design team, and we don't have any questions or concerns there. Our goal is to just be in compliance with those conditions. And
Great. My next question was, will you be able to comply with those?
I don't see any reason why not.
Okay, wonderful. Is there any other additional information you'd like to give the commission about this project?
You know, it was presented thoroughly by the staff, so I think we'll let that stand.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, then we will open this agenda item to public comment. If there's someone that would like to make a comment about this agenda item, you can come and state your name and address for the record. And we just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment for this? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment portion and bring it back to the commission for discussion or a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction of the proposed office warehouse building and the operation of a contract construction services business on the property located at 5310 South Riley Lane, subject to the 10 conditions.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Hacker to approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction of a proposed office, warehouse building, and operation of a contract construction services business on the property located at 5310 South Riley Lane, subject to the 10 conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and a second by Commissioner Malkovich. You can take a vote.
Okay, Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Lowry,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
and Chair Patterson.
Yes. Okay,
We're missing
motion.
2 people, so
Yep, I
I'm
know.
like, wait.
It's hard to keep track, huh? So that conditional use permit was approved, and good luck with your project. Thank you for being here. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, Infinity Custom Countertops. Is the applicant here tonight? Okay, great. We'll have you come up in just a moment. We'll have a quick presentation from Zach first.
Okay, so yeah, this is a request for a countertop contractor located at 4563 South, 160 West. It's located just south of 4500 South. It's kind of, you know how it kind of sinks down. It's kind of up on that plateau there, off 160 West. It's in the MG zone. Again, contractors in the MG zone are allowed, subject to obtaining conditional use permit approval. There's not a lot to this one. So this is a 2,200 square foot unit in, I believe, eight or so units, and it is just largely an open warehouse space with office, restroom, 2 garage doors, one in the front, one in the rear, and a man door kind of in the front there. So you can see he provided parking. This meets the parking standards that are laid out in the ordinance for warehouse uses. I believe he needs 5 and he has 5, so no concerns there. Super short and sweet. So we are requesting that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit, subject to the 6 conditions. Anything I can answer? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, if we could have the applicant come up.
Walter Cervantes, and do you need the shop address or my home address?
The shop
The
address.
shop
would work,
address,
too.
4563 South, 160 West.
And have you had an opportunity to review these conditions?
Yes.
And you'll be able to comply with them?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any additional information that you'd like to give the commission?
I would like to add an address. Like I have my home address in the application, but I need to add another address if that's okay.
Onto the application?
Yes.
Sure.
Do I need to do that right here, or
I think you can call
I can just
into
call
the
it? Oh,
office.
okay.
Yeah. And add it
I
on
can
there.
do that then? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. We'll take some public comment then.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, sorry.
I have a
Is there a
quick question.
question? Sorry. Come
I have a
back.
Quick question. I think it's a formality. I know the answer, but we just haven't talked about. So there isn't a dumpster on site. One of the conditions is if you need a dumpster, you have to provide a space for that. You're aware of that, and there's no concerns, and you don't intend to use a dumpster. Well,
I do have a dumpster in the back of the shop. I don't have the dimensions of that, but it's pretty small, and I usually just put it on the back of my truck and go to the dumpster and then throw it there.
so
Okay.
Would that work?
Mr. Smallwood, you know what he's talking about. It'll be okay, or it'll be addressed at a later point when the license comes along. Okay. All right. And then my one other question was, where is it quick? Oh, but you just with the CPU for contractors, one of the reasons it's a conditional use permit is because we like to make sure that you're aware of there's no outside storage. You know that, and that's okay?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We will open this item up to public comment. Is there anyone that would like to come and make a comment about this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment portion and bring it back to the commission for further discussion or a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to to approve a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a contract construction services business on the property located at 4567 South, 160 West, subject to the following the 6 conditions.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Lowry to approve the conditional use permit to allow the operation of a contract construction services business on the property located 4563 South 160, subject to the 6 conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And a second by Commissioner Hacker. You can take a vote.
All right, Commissioner Lowry,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
and Chair Patterson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is approved. So good luck with your project. And if you have any other questions or things, you can call the offices tomorrow. Okay. Thank you for being here. All right. We'll move on to agenda item number 6. Murray Square Commercial Center LLC. Is the applicant here? Wonderful. First, we'll have a presentation.
Thank you. This is an application for design review and conditional use permits to allow buildings 1 and 4 in the commercial phase of the Murray Square commercial or the Murray Square mixed use development. And as a reminder, the reason that it is a multiple part approval is that the memorandum of understanding, that's kind of like a development agreement that governs this project, requires that the commercial phase that's happening in this frontage along 900 East, projects in the commercial phase were not fully formed. They were conceptual and we didn't know exactly what they were going to look like. So they were to come back as a group and get those approved and make sure that they didn't violate terms of that MOU or terms of the master site plan. So that's what we're doing. It's granting design approval and conditional use for those 2 buildings. This is the 10.5 acre site that is Murray Square mixed use development. You have the 2 residential phases. The larger residential phase is underway right now. There's a building there you can see if you drive by, and the access way going back through is still open. The second residential phase will happen here on the south side of the access way, but the commercial phase happens up here. It's all supposed to be built within 5 years of the MOU's approval, which is we're about 1.5 years at this point, I think. So we're on track to get that part done. And this approval, like we said, this request is for 2 of those buildings. This is in the MCMU zone. It was rezoned to mixed use to accommodate this project. And just to show you again, this is the commercial phase you're seeing. We're going to be looking at the site plans for building 4 and building 1 tonight, although these 2 are kind of integrated as well. And a lot of those same improvements, the parking, the access, the pedestrian ways are all part of that and tied up together with it. And this is the large building that's underway as you see the site right now. This is the building 1 site plan. You can see building 1 right here. It is a 4-unit building with a drive-through on the north side. Drive-throughs were contemplated as a part of the master site plan for this project, although they're not typical in mixed use. This is more suburban mixed use, and we did contemplate some drive-throughs being part of this. There are good pedestrian connections through this area. This is kind of the central feature where we were planning for food trucks and that kind of thing. So these are supposed to be raised and colored and patterned crosswalks so that there's good identified pedestrian connections, because this is going to be an active area on the site plan. One of the things that we pointed out on the site plan, or in the staff report rather, was that the pedestrian connection from 900 East, the sidewalk coming onto the project from 900 East, because of this drive-through and the slightly larger building getting moved to the north end at this point instead of the smaller building, we've swapped them. We had to move that connection a little bit further south between here. That actually might be okay in some ways. It lines up better with some of the interior things that are going on. You can see that on the next slide. We'll talk about that a bit. One thing to point out too, on this north end, this is a right in, right out only vehicle access to the project, and that's in your engineering conditions. Parking, just real quickly, just in case there were any questions, there's a lot more parking on this site than we require in mixed use zones. That's to function for the residential as well. Remember, it's all part of a joint use parking scheme. This is the south building, or building 4. Again, this was a multi-tenant building that you approved before. This is swapping it out for a single tenant building with a drive-through still. This is 3,800 square feet, drive-through on the north side still as it was before. Pedestrian accesses, when we had looked at the site plan before, we needed to add them in this area. They need to be added again. That's been omitted from this site plan. Those pedestrian connections are mandated by the master site plan. They have to be there. So we've included that in the conditions of approval. And they should match the rest of the site as well. Good pedestrian connections from 900 East in this area, along the main access in, and then connections through here that are important. And you can see, again, this is that interior pedestrian connection from 900 East, that interior sidewalk. That should line up well with the main accesses coming out of the larger apartment building. So that's probably not a bad development for us that way. Those kinds of issues are the things that we're seeing that need to be added to the site plan for it to go forward. So we've made those conditions of approval. Good landscaping on the project. We're really pleased with the landscaping plan. It meets our requirements on the 900 East frontage for Chapter 17.68. But the interior landscaping is really well done with the interior accesses. It's all focused around those pedestrian ways, and we like that. It makes that experience better. This is the landscaping plan on Building 1 and Building 4. So we don't have any concerns with the landscaping plan, and we are, under these findings, with the conditions that we've expressed, it will meet the requirements of that memorandum of understanding, that development agreement, and it will meet the terms of the master site plan. So we are recommending approval based on these 10 conditions, including engineering concerns and planning's efforts to get it in line with the master site plan. Any questions from the commission at this point? Thank you.
If we could have the applicant come forward.
Hello, Justin Kimball, 1000 South Main Street, Suite 104, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84101.
Thanks for being with us. Have you had an opportunity? Oh, we left the conditions. No, that's fine. Yeah. Have you had an opportunity to review the conditions of approval?
I have.
And you'll be able to comply with those?
We will.
Okay. Is there any additional information you'd like to give us?
No, I think Jared summed it up nicely. So
Great.
happy to answer any questions, though.
Are there any questions from the commission?
I think this is an appropriate time for me to bring up my concerns. So, Mr. Kimball, I kind of want to just go back for a second, and so the public is where I am, I hope. When this project came to us, I think as a community, we're a little bit excited about how we're moving toward mixed use in areas. It's kind of a way to infuse life into an area 24/7 year round. You have people living where there's commercial, then there's always activity. There's people looking out for the area, keeping it clean, keeping crime down, keeping the economy moving. And so that's a nice modern idea how to use areas, and we like that idea. Your project kind of squeaked in when we were just starting to use mixed use, and I personally feel like it's a little bit too dense for the area. I feel like the community might feel that way as well, because we came back and we created other mixed use zoning that could control for smaller areas a little bit better. So you kind of squeezed in under the radar before we got to where we are now. And so that's a little disappointing to me that it's that big, but it's legal. It's appropriate to what we had at the time. So there was that little bit of angst. And then we came along and we
Are
said,
you referring to on the commercial side or on the apartment side?
residential side.
On the units?
Yeah, on the residential side. It's not your fault. It was our code. You met our code. And it's us in retrospect saying, hey, our code should have been tweaked. And we did tweak our code. And now if you came to us now, it would have been smaller. But you were part of our learning curve. That's okay. It's not your fault. It's ours. But so there is that little angst about the number of residents in the area. And then we wanted our mixed use not to have drive-throughs in it, because we wanted to be pedestrian friendly. We wanted to be a community in which you're walking, talking, seeing each other, and living in it. So then you came to us and asked about drive-throughs, and we said, oh, we understand the reasoning. Okay, so we kind of went with that. But it's a little bit of a change to the plan. And then now this plan comes to us with not having the pedestrian crossing that we've asked for all along. So I feel disappointed that you're coming to me without that. And it kind of makes me, I understand it's in the conditions. And I understand we'll get it. But it makes me think I just want to put it on hold and you come back to me with those things in the plan like they should be. I don't know.
Sure.
Any other thoughts, opinions?
And I'm happy to address that. To be honest, I didn't realize our central feature, like Jared pointed out, was always where we're going to have that pergola in the grassy area for benches. And that was always in our MOU designated as our central feature and our community gathering place. I know that we had a sidewalk going to the south building, and we had to tweak things and we had to change parking and access. But I know it was a pretty minor sidewalk, so I'm not concerned about adding that in, but it definitely wasn't an intentional omission. We probably will lose a couple parking stalls, but like Jared said, we have ample there, and so I'm not worried about that. So we want the same thing that you want. We want this to be very community oriented, not only for our residents, but for Murray City. We're also concerned about how much commercial is there. I was hoping you would say you were concerned about the commercial, because I would love to remove some of the commercial, because we're having a really hard time leasing it. And the only buildings we are able to lease are drive-through space right now with COVID. And so we've actually made some requests to try to remove some commercial, but it's part of our development agreement that we have to do that much, which I understand why the city wants it. So easy to add back in the sidewalk. We'll make some connectivity and make sure we do it in a way that satisfied what I think you're asking for.
I'm glad that you feel it's easy to do. I do know in our last meeting, I personally commented on why both of the crossings weren't equally robust. And so there was discussion about that before. So
Okay.
the fact that the southern one was smaller and less robust was unsatisfying to me at the time. So.
Well, the northern one was always intended, like I mentioned, to go for that gathering area, and so that's why that one was the predominant one. I think our requirement was to have one central feature. So that was our one access way to get to our central feature. And so I agree that we want the residents to be able to safely cross over into the commercial, but it was never our understanding that they both had to be to the same magnitude. But that doesn't mean we don't want it there. So I'll make sure we get it back in there. But I don't think it'll be to the same scale as the one to the north. Just so we're on the same page.
And I'd like to hear what the other commissioners feel like. I personally feel like the public should see that, and I would lean toward let's just table it, and then you come back to us with that. But what do others think?
I tend to agree with Commissioner Milkevich that we've gone a little bit past where we should go, and would also like to ask you to come back again and show us some additional plans before we actually give you the permitting and conditional use.
Okay, just with that additional sidewalk?
Yeah, in the site plan. Yeah. So I think it would be conditions 6 and 8. If we want to go back to the conditions, that you would just be the residential phase building 1 shall be included in the site plan, and the building permits submit raised, colored, and stamped concrete, and then the interior pedestrian connections would just be denoted. So I think those were what was left off
Okay.
of the site plan. So just so that we can see and review how the interior crosswalks are all.
And if I could add, I think that a big part of the mixed use, it is the what Commissioner Milkevich mentioned about the dynamic of commercial and residential blended together. But I think one of the things that got a lot of us excited about it is that main central feature. And we've had some that we've seen that have been quite exciting, and that will really be community. There'll be things that the community will be very proud of. And so I think that it would be a great thing to to be able to talk about that a little bit more. For us, we want to see a space, and I'm sure you do as a developer, that draws people in, that will drive people to those businesses and make it be a successful development that will beautify the community. So I think that's something that's important for us to understand, and probably one of the reasons why folks are focused on how they get to that central feature is because that's one of the things that we hope and believe will be one of the hallmarks of these developments that we've been approving are wonderful community features and central features that will really be a showcase of the city.
Understood.
Is that fair?
Did you have something?
Well, I just wanted to give you a little, as far as tabling it to the meeting. This is if you table it and continue it to another meeting. If you say the date of the meeting that it's going to happen, we don't have to notice it again. These are fairly simple changes. Like you said, they did get a site plan done when we had asked for it before that it showed this. It probably got omitted again inadvertently when it goes to different engineers and different architects all the time. We don't have to renotice it again. So we're okay to put it on the next agenda. That's 2 weeks on January 20th. If you wanted to continue it, and I don't know if that would, I don't think it would be hard to get this change made.
No.
So if it's all right, then that would be my suggestion. If you want to continue it to January 20th. We'll have Justin's team get it fixed, and we'll get this done in 2 weeks.
And then we would have a public comment and review it.
Yep, we'll review it again the same way at that meeting. We'll open public comment again. The hearing basically that the meeting stays on hold, open, waiting for that to happen. And anyone that was interested in this item ostensibly is watching or listening tonight and would know that they need to come back on the 20th to see it happen again. That's what you don't have to renotice again.
Okay.
So that helps out.
I was just going to add that I agree with what the commissioners have said, and I think I would support putting this off till the 20th.
So,
We would make a motion now.
You'd move to continue it to the January 20th meeting.
and Madam Chair, is the time appropriate? May I make a motion to continue this item to the January 20th meeting?
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. A motion by Commissioner Milkevich and a second by Commissioner Pearson to continue this conditional use permit application until the January 20th Planning Commission meeting.
Commissioner Milkovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Lowry,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson.
Yes.
Gonna say Marin.
Yeah. So we will see you back in a couple weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. So for our next agenda items, we are actually going to just swap and do our agenda item number 8, our land use ordinance text amendment for JNG Investments LLC. Is the applicant here? All right. So we'll have our text amendment first by Susan Nixon, and then we'll do our agenda item number 7.
Oh. Oh, you did. Okay. Go back. You had it ready then. Good job. Okay. Thank you. Yes, here we go. All right. This application was submitted from JNG Investments. Jonathan Rudd is the applicant. The request is for a text amendment to section 17.112.020, which would include a land use category number 1112, single-family dwellings attached, specifically twin homes, as a permitted use in the R210 zone. They also submitted a subsequent application to change the zoning at a certain property that we will talk about next. But so it's kind of a 2-part application. The proposed R210 zone amendment would allow development for twin homes with the same restrictions as duplexes. Duplexes are currently allowed as a permitted use in the R210 code. This is a copy of the taken out of the code listing the permitted uses with the insert in red designating land use 1112, which are twin homes, to be included into the text. And it reads that twin homes shall meet the following yard and area requirements: 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, which is 5,000 per dwelling, a 40-foot minimum frontage on a public street, 20 feet for each dwelling, and each twin home dwelling must maintain a minimum setback of the R210 zone with the additional setback of 0 feet interior where they are adjacent to the second dwelling. So that would be the common wall between the two units serves as a property line. So therefore it would be 0. Property line would be 0. Okay, so the R210 zone, this is the current regulations, and then what I've added in red, it would be a change. So the lot sizes for the R210 is 10,000, as I mentioned. The height is 35 feet maximum. And front setback, 25 feet. Rear yard setback is 25 feet. The side yard setbacks are different. Obviously, we have the 0 lot line for the common property line. And then currently, the regulations are 8-foot minimum on one side, but a total of 18 typically are when the zones have a total of 20. So that is a little bit different, but that is existing. And the corner side yard setback is 20 feet. And same parking regulations of 2 off-street parking stalls per unit are required. So what's the difference between a twin home and a duplex? A lot of people interchange the terms, but they are definitely different. The bottom line, the main difference between them is twin homes allow for home occupancy, homeowner occupied units. So they can be sold separately, owned separately, rather than one unit. This diagram here depicts, so land use number 112, which is the twin homes. The illustration on the left shows the units on a lot with a division. The dashed line is the property line. That would be a 10,000 square foot lot with 2 dwellings on it. And then the second illustration down below, which is the duplex, shows on the left side of a parcel with the duplex, and there is no property line between the actual parcel. It's just the unit itself. But those are typically owned by one person. So there are also building code differences for twin homes and duplexes because of the zero lot line. The common wall requires different building codes. Does anybody have a question on that? Well, I've got it up there. Okay.
So that's kind of suggesting that the duplex example you give on the bottom left is one piece of property that it's divided into two living spaces owned by one person. So it suggests it's always partially rented.
Yes. Right. That's a good
And then the
yep.
twin homes, one piece of property that's divided into two owners, that suggests it's more likely to have owner
parcels.
occupied. Doesn't require it, but more likely because there's two owners to the property.
Yes, typically would have two owners. Yes, these have become kind of they are new, not new. They're not new to the industry, but they have become more popular and more in demand, basically because of the cost of housing. These make it a little more affordable for people to purchase. Also, let's see. So I just got to look at my notes here, make sure I'm covering all this. So what's the difference? So I went, all these photos I'm going to show you are all in Murray, but they are examples of the differences. So these two pictures are a twin home. Each unit is 1,350 square feet. So the total mass would be 2,700 square feet, the total mass, if it were viewed as one unit. The different styles there, they're, very nice, look very well. This is a new project in Murray. One thing I forgot to mention, in 2002 to 2004, we had a lot of area annexed into Murray City, mainly the east side, from 900 East up to Highland Drive. When those properties, a lot of them were annexed in, there were existing twin homes and duplexes. And we, at that time, did not have the R210 zone. So we tried to match up as best we could, but a lot of them became what we call legal nonconforming. They don't meet the current regulations. And there are a lot of them in the city. So the R210, when we adopted it in 2007, was partially intended to fix those properties that were nonconforming. However, there is only one property in the city that is R210, and that's up on Jeremy Drive. And it's the only one. So this is really kind of our first get-go with the change as proposed. So these two illustrations here were existing. They were annexed into Murray, so they are non-conforming in some fashion. I didn't actually do the details on it, but they existed and then were annexed into Murray. Both of these are about 1,100 square feet and individually owned. These photos are a duplex. So not a lot of difference there. You can see that there's still two units, two garages.
If I can get in these examples, where the dividing line, the wall is, each side has its own parcel number, correct?
Yes.
And
For twin homes, yes.
for a twin home, and that really is the distinction.
Yes. Yes, so they are assessed separately. They have their own tax ID or parcel number, and they basically are viewed as a whole separate unit.
They are.
So
They are a whole separate
individually owned.
Yeah.
So in more layman's terms, who don't use the parcel and numbers all the time, it means the use is different because you have owner versus owner renting.
But a twin home has the potential to be owner occupied, but they still could rent it if they wanted. But yes, it does allow that ability for home ownership, where the duplex is just one owner.
Technically, there's most properties have the ability to be rented, but so any house could rent to someone, but the duplex is guaranteed some space will be rented and there'll be more turnover.
Yes, true.
Than in a townhome.
Typically true. So these are both of these photos are duplexes. The one.
No, next page. Next.
Know where they're located.
I had the addresses on here, and oops, that one. That has the address. Do you want to know the other ones? These that you're seeing now are on Whispering Pine, which is on the east side of 7th East and about 6,000 South.
So it used to be Midvale?
No.
You said
Unincorporated county. Unincorporated county.
So Holiday.
No, I think it was just county, unincorporated county. These, the first ones are off of Winchester Street in 5th East. It is the Fashion Court, Fashion Place Court. Just brand new, it's still under construction. And yeah, these I actually left the addresses on them. One's on 53rd South, the upper one, and the other one is Darby Circle. The one on Darby Circle was one that was existing, that was annexed in 2002, 3, something like that. So the top one has about 1,700 square feet. Now, again, that is one unit, well, one structure on the parcel, and it's rented out, owned by one person. Same with the one down below, the duplex. Again, one owner, rentals. The upper one is also a 2-story condo. So these are individually owned, kind of similar to a twin home, but a condo obviously is a little bit different, 2-story, et cetera. This is, so each unit on that one is 1,974 square feet. The total mass is 3,800, but that looks, really not that ominous or that huge. The one down below is a single-family home with 2 driveways. So if you look at that one and compare it to some of these, it still is the mass with the driveways. Anyway, does that give you kind of a good idea of the differences there? Our general plan refers to supporting this type of a use. Chapters 5, 8, and 9 specifically have goals to provide and promote a mix of land uses and allow a wide spectrum of housing types and simplify the residential zoning districts to maintain the residential integrity of the neighborhood, but also allow for more options of variety. And then Chapter 8, also similar, overall goal, provide a diversity of housing through a range of types and development patterns to expand the options available of existing and future residents. And then down in the objectives, it's listed implement transition housing types that would integrate well with surrounding single-family dwellings and create a physical and visual transition from commercial developments. So while I'm talking about that one, the visual difference of these are still one mass, one structure, but whether it's divided in half individually owned or not, it still gives you visually the same effect. Chapter 9 of the general plan also addresses moderate income housing. And I think I mentioned before, by allowing these twin homes on smaller lots, 5,000 square feet, basically, it does allow for more affordable housing as opposed to a single family, same. So it does help in that category as far as supporting in the general plan. One of the points here is that I want to point out at the last sentence on the objective, review zoning ordinances and make modifications where necessary to allow housing types, lot size, setbacks, and other factors that limit types of housing in a zone. So this actually fits into there. And then the sentence above that, support a wide range of housing types, including townhomes, row homes, and duplexes, which appeal to younger and older individuals, as well as a variety of population demographics. So this is just something that's been missing from our housing inventory, the ability to have. So as we reviewed this application, we concluded the following 5 findings: that it does comply with the general plan and allows for flexibility and implementation. It does, excuse me? Oh, I did. There we go. Sorry, thank you. It does meet, we considered it based on the characteristics and the building designs, obviously. The proposed text is consistent with Chapter 17, which is the zoning code. And it does meet the goals and policies that are outlined in the general plan, as I mentioned in Chapters 5, 8, and 9. And then this also would allow additional housing types that right now are limited in Murray. So based on that, we are recommending that the Planning Commission recommending approval to the City Council to include the land use 1112 twin homes as a permitted use in the R210 zone and modify the text for section 17-112-020 to read as highlighted there in red. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I do have a question. I think these changes make sense I mean, it's great. We could have twin homes instead of duplexes or change duplexes to twin homes. And so that's my question is, if we currently have a property that is not zoned R210, that a duplex sits on right now, and there's a zone change to R210, can we then subdivide that and make it a twin home? Is that possible?
Yes and no. Yes, if it meets the regulations of this. But another question also would be, could that duplex be retrofitted physically as far as structurally for that common wall to meet the zoning, building codes? I would guess so, but they would definitely have to do some modifications to it that way. Yeah. So, yes.
Okay. That's all I had.
That's an interesting discussion point, because then if someone owns a house and they've been renting out sections of it for the last 20 years, they could decide they're in the financial situation which one to sell half their house. That's just interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe if it meets the building requirements.
It depends on the situation. It would have to meet all the criteria here. And then again, a house would be more difficult probably, especially if it was a 2-story. I guess you could try to minimize it, but that would be difficult, especially with the building codes and just the way it's structurally done. But I guess anything's possible if you want to spend the money to modify the home.
So I have a question.
Go ahead, Ned.
So with this zone change, it would allow the addition of twin homes. You could still build duplexes and you could still build single-family homes in this zone.
Yes, exactly. Duplexes are currently allowed, single families are allowed. It's the twin home that is the missing category, basically.
I guess, can I make my statement a little bit clearer when I was talking about a duplex becoming a twin home? And I'm slightly expressing a personal opinion, which I try not to do too much because I need to focus on the community's needs, not mine. But in the sense that some communities who have kind of under the radar changed into triplexes and duplexes, which might be unpleasant to some residents, and because of the high turnover of residents in the facility, that someday if they became a twin home, it might be more appealing to the neighbors.
Sure.
It could be that
Yeah,
opportunity.
owner occupied is always preferable, but there is a demand for duplexes. I think we've all lived in a rental one time or another.
I have too.
So there's really a need for both. It's just this one is one that's not really, we don't have the option right now.
That's why I said I was expressing a personal opinion, because I respect rentals as well. I lived in apartments and rentals. I'm not
sure.
So a quick question. This is concerning one of the examples you showed, which is the development off of Winchester, which is a twin home development.
Mhm.
How did that get approved if we don't have this?
Great question.
Yeah.
So that was actually changed. The zoning was changed. It's a little complicated. The zoning for that is actually R&B, which is residential neighborhood business. And that zone was actually modified to allow twin homes with this same criteria, other than the side setbacks are a little different. There are a total of 20 and this is 18. That's exactly how it was. Because again, it was missing from the housing inventory from our land use. So,
all right.
Yeah, thank you.
So then I have to follow up. So just for point of discussion, then why wouldn't we not use R&B here? I think I know the answer, because the frontage isn't what we require in R&B, but for those who are listening might not know, why wouldn't this be considered through the R&B so that they can meet their need for a twin home?
Good question. So the R&B is a residential neighborhood business district, which typically serves as a buffer from a major roadway or a high commercial area to the residential single-family neighborhoods. It serves as a buffer for that. And so this really wouldn't be buffering in that case from anywhere. Plus, the R&B is not slated in the general plan or the future land use map for this area. I could actually, I think it's in my other. It's in my. I'm going the wrong way. That's what happens when we swap them around. Yeah. Let me show you. So this is the future land use map for that area. And then the red is highlighted for a particular property. That shows, for that area, but we're not talking about that area. But to answer your question, I guess it could apply,
But not to this
R&B.
piece of
It's just
property.
different. Go
And
ahead.
In the statements about R&B and where it belongs in the city, when you look at the future land use designations, it belongs on corridors, on transportation corridors that front or that have behind them stable residential areas. That's what it was designed to do. It was designed to work in about 3 or 4 areas of the city, and this just isn't one. So when we did the text amendment to allow the twin homes in the R&B zone, that conversation happened. Should we just everywhere that we allow duplexes, should we just consider starting to allow twin homes now? And we said, yeah, probably, but this particular request was just for that, and that's what we were processing. So we kind of thought this day might come, and it'll probably come again in other zones that might allow duplexes as well.
Yeah, sorry, I probably didn't go over that very well. But yeah, we should have twin homes, to be honest, in the RM zones. But they applied for it, so we're responding to their application. So, but yes, we really ought to update the other zones to have the same twin homes.
My question is maybe doesn't necessarily apply to this, but as we're looking for diversity of housing in some of these mixed use areas, we did consider twin homes, right, as something that we could put into mixed use. And now it's almost like going backwards and like applying it to other places that it would be infill, like this exact property is kind of an infill neighborhood that, is anyway.
Yeah. Now, this application for the text amendment is not specifically for a site. We need to kind of keep that separate.
Right.
It would apply citywide for any property that would be zoned R210. Yeah. Okay. Right. So,
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. It would apply anywhere.
correct. Citywide for any property that's R210.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the commission before we take some public comment? Okay.
The applicant first, right?
Can you just clarify what I just?
Well, we will have public comment in just a moment. And you can ask questions there.
I just wanted to know what she just said. Does that mean if this passed, that is a citywide ordinance now, so anybody could change again?
No. So the zoning code has obviously several different zoning districts, and your property is probably, I'm just going to guess, is R18 single family residential. And in each one of those zoning districts are allowed certain uses, but they are designated on a map, the zoning map. So when we say citywide, it just gives the ability for any property that has the R210 zoning would have twin homes. But right now, there's only one property in Murray that has the R210 zone. So, yeah. Okay.
I'll fill that.
Thank you, Susan. Okay. Yes. Can we have the applicant come forward? Thanks
Hi.
for being with us. Hi. Is there any additional information you have for the
Yeah.
commission or the?
Sure. My name is Jonathan Rudd. I'm with J&G. I will tell you, just to give you some background story, we purchased this property in July, and I received a call this week. I think there had apparently been some people that were claiming that they owned this particular property. We did not know about this in the past, and I think they were trying to put in some multi-family rental units or something of that nature. I don't think it had come before the city yet, but they were going to the residents, and I received a phone call and clarified who we were and that we wanted to do this. It probably would possibly be more lucrative for someone to do multifamily, but for us, we saw this piece of land and we saw that there was a need. It's funny, you do see it on the east side more, and there's the communities of Draper and areas like that that are doing it a lot more, but you don't see it in Murray. And it provides such an opportunity and more flexibility. When it can be owner occupied, you become a neighborhood. When it's rentals, you still can be a neighborhood, but it definitely tends itself to people that come and go much more often and don't become residents of the city long term. in some respects. And we think that this is a need that it costs more to build definitely a twin home than a duplex. They're bigger, they're much nicer, they're a home, and they're owner occupied. We can't prevent someone from buying it and renting it, but most people aren't buying twin homes to as rental properties as much. They're normally buying them as a home for themselves. And so for us, we just saw a need for that, and it fits with the size of the land. And that's what makes sense, and it's much nicer and allows for a community. But I wanted to make it clear to the public. They told me the company was Boardwalk. The names, some of the individuals, I am not affiliated with them. We are J&G, we own it, but that's our intent, is to probably invest a little bit more money, but just make it nice. And it's a need that really allows for a greater demographic, young and old, to come. They're looking for these things, and gives them a little more space and a little bit more luxury and garages and nicer. And on the building side, I don't know if many people would ever want to convert from a duplex or condos to twin homes, because the firewalls and the construction, I mean, these have to be built differently. It's more stringent. So, but it would be good if they could. We just think this is a great need and would really add a lot to that neighborhood. There is rentals nearby, and in acquiring the land, that's just not what we wanted to do. So that's why we chose to try and make this owner occupied and make it nice. So we appreciate the city working with us, and we're willing to take questions from anybody, the council, and we'll stay. So if there's any
Is there any
questions.
questions from the commission for the applicant? Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
And we have our engineer here too, if you want to hear from him as well.
Great.
The next item.
Yes. So for the text amendment, we're taking public comment for that specifically on this agenda item. If you would like to make a comment, you can come to the podium and state your name and address. We ask that you keep your comment to 3 minutes, and that you present new information when you make your comment. If something has been stated, then we will take that into consideration. And after the public comment portion is closed, we will address any questions or concerns with the applicant or with staff after we take all of the comments. So is there anyone that would like to speak to this agenda item? You can please come up to the podium and state your name and address.
Kimball Ward, 6548 South, 130 West. My question is, with making this text amendment to the R2 zoning, how small would the lots be allowed to be subdivided? When I look at the lots that are available in that area, specific to the next agenda item, I suppose, one of the lots is very small. I think it's 10,000 square feet. So if that was subdivided into two, you would have two very small properties. And I just want to understand how big each lot would have to be. If this passes, they showed an example of like 3 homes together that could be essentially subdivided off of one property. How small could they make these? That's my question.
Okay, we'll have staff address that. Any other comments?
My name's Casey Johnson. I live at 6545 South Jefferson Street. I guess I have multiple, but the way we did it kind of screwed me up on my question. So I guess my first question is what I was kind of trying to specify at the end of Susan's, what she was explaining. So across the street on Jefferson, we just changed R8 to R6. If this has been allowable, why haven't the past developer, because I've been approached by multiple developers on this specific property on what they can and cannot build. So why now are we trying to mass populate that and change it to a 210? Why has nobody else done that? If they've all been vetoed down on what they could build, the last 4 meetings I've been to, it's not making much sense that we change it to a 210 higher density when they couldn't put multiple buildings. I mean, like the last gentleman said, I don't know if we're going to get into how many lots we're looking at or in that type of thing. But I guess my question is, what's going to stop the guy that just got his change to R6 to come back and go 210 now and double everything in the neighborhood where they went from 16 to 19 homes across the street. Now I believe, I'm shooting from the hip, but I think he has 4 parcels that he could get 8 properties if they went to twin homes. Now, the other thing is sidewalks in that neighborhood. It's been shut down for the rental properties that they've refurbished up front on Jefferson. They need the last go around. They needed a road. None of these things are happening now. So we're just putting more mass into a piece of property that's been shut down all the time till now. Now we're trying to put more homes in there. So my question is, where have all these been addressed on that? Can the other place be able to go to 210 now that there are 6? I mean, there's multiple facets involved here, but my question is what's to stop like the rest of the city going, oh, we can tear this down and make it 2. We're doubling everything now.
Yeah, we will address that question after the public comment portion. Any other comments about this text amendment? Yeah, please come up.
Heidi Ward, 6548 South, 130 West. My street is the one that will be having that put in, coming off of. So in July, we got this rendition of what it was supposed to be like, and I was fine with that. Now I just don't know why we don't have the same kind of picture land drawing here for us, because we don't know what's being put in there. If you change it to medium density, that's a lot of things that could be put in there that we don't know. I'm concerned about, obviously they can't right now you can't have a fire truck in there because of the lines that are over that road. Just adding more people going through that street is a lot more when you add it. So I don't know if the rendition here is adding 2 onto this each lot, or if it's, yeah.
Yeah, I understand why you have questions about that. And we could maybe talk a little bit more on the next agenda item about that. But because this is a text amendment, it doesn't specifically apply to that project. But I can see why you're trying to be like, this is what I had and how does it apply and change to that property.
Yeah.
So I totally understand why you have those questions. And some of them might be a little bit more addressed in the next presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. If there are no further public comments, I'll close the public comment portion and maybe bring it back to staff just to maybe answer some of those questions.
Yes, thank you. I can hopefully address all the questions. And some of them are applicable for the next application.
Right.
So it's hard to separate the two. When it's a text amendment, we don't talk about a specific site because it's not for a specific site. It could be for any property that has the applicable zone. So, but since the next application is for a specific site, it gets a little convoluted here. But to answer the questions, I think that I wrote down the difference between the R16 and the R210. The R16 is a single family, one dwelling on a minimum 6,000 square foot lot. The R210 is a twin home on a 10,000 square foot lot, basically with 5,000 per dwelling, 5,000 square foot per dwelling. So it's split right down the middle, 10,000. So it is 5,000 as opposed to 6,000 square feet minimum for a dwelling. Bottom line.
Well, and he had a question about this example on the side of having it divided into 3, and there would be a minimum that.
Okay, so good question. I'm gonna, I didn't include that section of our code. The permitted uses allow for single-family dwellings, twin homes, and duplexes. Under our conditional uses that are allowed, and I did not include a copy of that slide here, I probably should have, it does allow for row homes or more than 2 dwellings, more than a twin home, so 3 or 4, attached, like that illustration, the third one there, this one. But in order to do that, it has to be in a PUD, a planned unit development, which requires a minimum of 2 acres to begin with. So that would not work for smaller parcels in your area, probably.
No, that's the one I'm concerned about on the R6 that was just passed is well over 2 acres, and they could map.
I guess, it just was changed to R16. That's up to the property owner. They would have to apply to go to R210. And they
could, which
sure.
now makes our neighborhood more dense.
So
But if you think about it for 1 second, the R16 is a 6,000 square foot lot. This would be has to be at least a 5,000 square foot lot. So if you had 30,000 square feet, the difference between R16 is 5 units, and the difference between 210 is 6 units. It's one more.
Right.
That's how the math works out.
Yeah.
So it's not going to double. And if you're in R16, well, I mean,
I'm sorry, I got to interrupt on behalf of
Yeah.
Jamie because she has to type these minutes. So it's okay, but we just have to. The comments from public have to come to the pulpit, or she can't get them, and then the minutes don't reflect accurately the conversation. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry.
Susan, I think the discussion, what's an understanding that might be missing in the discussion, and I might not understand either, is when can you request a zone change? Like I can't come and say, I want to change mine to agricultural. There's standards that you have to meet in order to change your zoning, right?
Well, yes and no. Anybody can request a zone change for their property. Any property owner can do that. They have the right to apply. Now, whether or not it fits in, it aligns with the general plan and the existing properties around it.
It would come to the commission
Yeah,
and
it
it
would
would
come
be
to the-
reviewed by staff and it would have findings and all. It would go through that same
Yes,
process
go to the
for
city
every
council.
single application.
And you have to meet the requirements of the zone and the area. So like if I came to you wanting to be agricultural, you would say no because I don't have enough land and the area around me is not zoned for that. So there'd be
We probably wouldn't be able to take the application because it wouldn't even meet the bottom line, the minimums for it.
So the fact that this R210 zone already exists and we're changing it slightly doesn't necessarily increase the number of people who come to us asking for that zone change. Possibly not. There's still a lot of requirements within it.
True. Yes. But but the twin homes are they're in demand. We get calls for this, or
Sure.
requests for that quite a bit.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is if we look at an acre is 43,560 square
Yes,
feet.
right.
If you divided that by 5,000, it's 8 point some odd houses. If you divide it by 6,000, it's 7 point some odd houses. It's one more.
Exactly.
It's one more house per acre. That's the difference. It's not doubling any acreage, any density. It's
Exactly.
slightly more dense, but it's not significantly more dense than R16.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, exactly. Is that ready?
I think it is kind of confusing that it's an RM and that already right away, I think people are like, oh, medium density that
Right.
feels like more you know what I mean? I feel like when you hear that, it already kind of maybe sets off some like alarm bells but it's a R210, right? So I think that sometimes we are confusing medium density and
And I was actually going to get, and that's in a slide in the next
Yes,
application.
yeah.
So the R16, I don't mean to get this all confused. The R16, as you commissioners know, falls under our low density and the medium density.
Right.
It's both. R210 right now just shows up in the low density. No, low.
Hello.
Yeah.
It is in the low, and I do have a slide on that. But when we were updating wrong way. I keep you guys. When we were updating the general plan, the R210 should have been added in the medium density, and it to be honest, it just got left out. In fact, when we originally were doing our general plan, we were initially going to just eliminate the R210 because there wasn't anybody really requested it, and we didn't think it was necessary. But at the last, we kept it, but we neglected to put it under the medium density category, so to speak. And I will show you a copy. So this is what we're talking about. So this is in the general plan. It's got the low density residential. You'll see the R210 at the very bottom. And also the R16 just above it, low/medium. And then on the right-hand side is the medium density. It's got the R16. The R210 should also be in there because obviously 5,000 square feet is less than 6,000. So it should have been in here, but.
So this is like a correction almost.
Yeah,
of
we
something
didn't,
that was an
to be honest,
oversight.
Jared might want some.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Can I mention something real quick? I just
sure.
want to clarify a few things. I think what the question that Casey asked was, what's to stop somebody from coming in and changing their property to R210? And I think the answer is nothing. They can go apply for it, but they can apply for it right now, right? This change that we're making right now, that we're talking about right this second, the change we're making is actually allowing two property owners to own that twin home instead of it being a duplex. They could come in and ask right now to change the R210 and build duplexes if that's approved.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
So approving this text amendment, I don't think the only thing it's going to do is if somebody gets that approved, it's going to allow them to have two property owners in a twin home or duplex type property. They can ask for that right now. So nothing would stop them from asking about that. And then I just wanted to clarify with the twin home, you mentioned for the row homes. So if there was going to be more than two homes, that they would have to go, it would have to be in a PUD, which I don't think people understand what that is exactly.
Right.
So they would, so if this is approved, someone could build a twin home. They could not build a row home unless they came to us and presented why it would be a good idea. And then the planning commission would have to approve that. It just wouldn't be a allowed use. Is that
Correct, and they would have to have a minimum of 2 acres to begin with.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And for the reason, the reasoning for that is, you start getting the 2, 3, 4 attached homes, they become who maintains that common area. And then so we just felt as staff years ago, 2006, 7, that those type of row homes or the more attached 3, 4, 5, 6, however many units are much better run and turn out to be more viable and better maintained if it's in a PUD. A PUD is a planned unit development, meaning there is common ownership in the property itself, and then you own the walls, what's between the walls of the structure. But we had to have a minimum of 2 acres because anything less than that we felt is hard to have common ownership and to provide some kind of amenity with an open space.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah, that was good clarification. Thank you.
Yeah. To answer the one question that I believe Ms. Ward asked, I can answer her question when we get to the next application because I don't want to.
I think some of them, like the conditions about the property, I think was kind of asked, and some of those things would be on the next application.
But I think those are pertinent, and I think we should answer those now.
Oh,
about conditions on the
of the number of properties that could be in this particular parcel.
Okay. I have a slide that actually she pulled up a copy of the subdivision, and I have one here. This is the Jefferson Park number 3 subdivision, 4-lot subdivision that the Planning Commission approved in July of 2021. For 4 lots, all 4 lots have at least 10,000 square feet. But they applied for this, assuming they were going to have 4 single-family homes, 1 on each lot. The lots were 10,000 square feet. With the common, the road with the cul-de-sac is a public road. So the idea for the next application that we're going to talk about is on each one of these 4 lots, there would be a twin home. And it would be split in half, the lot. So lot number 1, which is, you can see it's just, 10,400 square feet, would have a common property line going through half of the property and half of the twin home. Does that make sense? And each side of that twin home would have a minimum of 5,000 square foot for the property and their own home connected by a common wall. The common wall is the property line. So in essence, you're going from 4 dwellings for this, what was approved in July, to potentially 8. But it is still 4 structures is what you're going to see.
So the massing stays the same, the number of families change.
Correct. Yes. As I showed in those photos of the other properties in Murray. Is that clear to everybody? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay.
I think that was all the questions.
Can I ask
we
one
had
quick
down.
question?
Yeah.
I believe it was Mr. Johnson stated something about the sidewalks. I didn't quite, I don't know what's going on with the sidewalks. in the area.
Thank you. So in the next application, I'll just we'll look at the aerial right now. The property we're talking about on the next application is off of 130 West, 6560 South. Jefferson Street is on the left-hand side. This property, the subject property, has no access on Jefferson. It is accessed through 130 West. If this property and the 4-lot subdivision that I just showed you, if it were on Jefferson, we would require sidewalks to be installed along Jefferson Street. This property here, I showed in the this does require curb gutter and sidewalk and a public road. So the reason for that is because it doesn't run on Jefferson Street, we can't force someone to improve property that they don't own or is not part of their development property. Does that make sense?
You're saying the properties on Jefferson Street aren't being required to have sidewalk, but the properties that would be developed would be required to have sidewalk.
Yes. And if this property had frontage on Jefferson, then yes, it would have to have we would make them install curb gutter sidewalk on that Jefferson frontage.
But they've subdivided them and
correct. Yes.
Could you go back to the plat map? It shows the square footage per
Oh,
lot.
right here. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, each one is 10,400, 14,000. Now they're not stuck to this. If the zoning is changed to R210, and then they come back to apply for, to then develop the property to twin homes. I mean, it could change a little. It still has to have.
Whose plan is this that you're showing us?
This is the subdivision that was approved in July of 2021, which is not this individual who has applied. It is the previous owners. I just did this to depict to kind of give you a perspective of what.
Sorry,
Yes,
sir,
yes.
I'm sorry. We
Yes.
just really can't have you speaking.
This
out in the
is the same diagram that Miss Ward had.
And we will review that in the next application. So we'll get back to our text amendment. And unless there's are there any more questions for Susan? Okay, and before we move forward, I just want to clarify to the public that the Planning Commission is we're forwarding a recommendation to the City Council. And so this agenda item and the text amendment will be heard at the City Council, and you will have another opportunity to go and speak to this, to your City Council members. Whatever is forwarded, the City Council will still be hearing that. So just to make you aware that there are other chances to make a comment and let them know how you feel.
Chair Patterson, I probably should have made a comment or mentioned this. To be totally transparent, which we try to be, so all you residents received notices for the zone change, which is the next application. You did not receive notices for this particular text amendment because, again, this is not for a site-specific location. This is for any property that would have an R210 zone. So we do send out notices for text amendments to what we call affected entities. But otherwise we'd have to send it out to the entire city so we did not send them to the neighbors because it's not site specific.
Thank you for clarifying. I'll bring it back for discussion among the commissioners. Is there any further discussion? My only thought is I do think that this helps us get to some of those things that we talk in the general plan about the missing middle and affordable housing. And I mean, really honestly, when I read the text, I was surprised that we didn't already have a way to have twin homes in the city. And then when you go back and look, you realize that, yeah, there probably were a lot of places that we could have developed a twin home, but we didn't have that in our text amendments. And so I think citywide, as we are building out and looking at smaller properties, that this is going to be a really good option across the city of places that could have a twin home, could have two owners. That wasn't an option before in this same way. So I think it accomplishes a lot of our general plan goals by making twin homes possible.
I agree. And I'll make a motion.
Right.
To forward a recommendation of approval to the city council to include land use 1112 twin homes as a permitted use in the R-2-10 zone by amending the text of section 17.112.020B as followed. Ready to read that out?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Lowry to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to include land use number 1112 twin homes as a permitted use in the R210 zone by amending the text section 17.112.020B as written in our packets. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and a second by Commissioner Hacker. You can take a vote.
Okay, Mr. Pearson,
Yes.
Ms. McCavich,
Yes.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Chair Patterson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So our recommendation will go on to the City Council, and we will now hear agenda item number 8, which is a zone map amendment for R18 to R210. So we'll have our presentation. We've already covered some of it maybe, but
yeah. Okay, so let's start over again. This property is at 6560 South, 130 West. It is south side of Fayette Avenue. Stubb Street is 130 West. The proposal is to change the zoning from R18 to R210. This property is 1.46 acres, currently vacant. Change from R18 to 210. There's just these photos were taken, obviously, not really recent in the summer, but it's just a vacant field. And along the front here of Jefferson Street, just to the west, the properties that does front on Jefferson Street, there's a legal nonconforming duplex and single family dwelling that were part of used to be owned by the same properties, same owner. So this application, if the zoning is changed to R210, would allow for twin homes. And again, this subdivision plat here is for the one that was approved in July under the R18 zone. So the R1, in comparing the R18 to the R210, we've kind of covered a lot of this, but here's just the difference for the requirements. The lot size for R210 is 8,000 square feet. For R18 is 8,000. R210 is 10,000 with 5,000 per unit. The height is the same, 35 feet. Front setback is 25, the same. Rear is the same. Side is the only difference. The R18 has 8 feet minimum on one side, but a total of 20 between the two sides. The R210 is minimum 8, with a total of 18. This is how it is now. So this is existing. We're not changing anything here as far as that goes. And then corner side yard is 20, setback, 20 feet setback, and then we just require 2 parking spaces per unit. The future land use map shows this area to be low-density residential, as shown there. And we displayed this illustration previously with the low density and the medium density in the corresponding zoning districts. And the R210 is in the low density residential. In February of 2021, the City Council approved the Fashion Place Small Area Plan, Fashion Place West Small Area Plan, as shown in this diagram. This particular property is in the sub-area number 1, which is the established residential area. And I thought I had a slide that no. So I'm gonna read a couple of the sections. Part of the Fashion Place Small Area Plan, there is a statement in there I just wanted to read here. As soon as I can find it. Thank you. All right. Apologize here. Too many things going on. Okay. Established residential sub-area number 1. It does specifically say the plan considers growth in 4 sub-areas. This is number 1 of the 4 areas. The sub-area calls for the development of single-family housing, duplex, and twin home housing, as well as accessory dwelling units. And this small area plan also calls for infill residential of the areas where underdeveloped parcels exist. And based on the goals and objectives of the small area plan and the general plan, we felt the R210 is appropriate for this particular property. So based on the request for the R210, the existing property at 130 West, and the general plan and small area plan, staff has come up with the findings for approval. As illustrated above, the general plan does allow for flexibility and implementation of the goals and policies. The zone change does meet the characteristics inside of the surrounding area and also meets the policies and objectives of the 2017 general plan, and is also supported in the future land use map. So staff is recommending a positive recommendation for approval be forwarded to the City Council for the requested change from R18 to R210 for the property at 6560 South 130 West. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So Susan, can you address why we aren't seeing a site plan for this so that the residents could see how everything would be laid out?
Yeah, yes, on zone requests, we do not allow, we don't display a specific site plan per se, because then we tend to focus on that site plan, and that is not the intent of the zone. The zoning changes. Does it comply? Does it meet the goals and objectives of the general plan and the future land use map? Really? If we put in a site plan, I know I put that subdivision plat in there because it is for that site, but it just shows you basically the area of the plan, how big it is and what could fit and what was previously approved in the R18. And this actually could be the same scenario if it was changed to R210 and have twin homes on those lots. But it is not specifically, we're not approving a site specific, any kind of a plan as far as. subdivision, et cetera.
The fact that you have this plan kind of proves your point that we're zoning it. And the person that bought it before had this plan. The new owner might have a different plan. Future owners can have another plan. That's why we're just talking about the zoning, because
Right.
we don't know who will actually build when they own it. So we're just talking about the zoning right now.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so
Yes.
this zone change, if we vote to approve it, would have to have a site plan that would then come back. Like this, what we see on this screen does not apply to what could happen to this property.
Correct.
Because this is not a site plan
Right.
for the zoning.
Yes, we are not approving.
So even though we've all seen it and it is in our head and we want to imagine that this is what it will turn out like, we're not approving this site plan.
That is correct. Yes.
It would be a totally new site plan that would come to the planning commission and have public comment and go through the entire process again.
Yes, if
Okay.
it's
However-
changed to R210, and notices would be sent out to them if it were a subdivision. However, it is a permitted use.
And however, even if we don't change the land use, there could be duplexes
Yes.
on each of those property lots as
As it currently, as the site plan
That was
currently
going to be my
exists.
question. They could build duplexes? Could they build triplexes?
Well, the way it is now, it's R18, so no, all they could do right now is single-family homes on that property. If it's changed with the code the way the R210 is currently now, they could build only duplexes and not twin homes.
Right.
Right.
Because that's an allowed use in R18.
Right.
Oh, right. And this
Sorry, don't speak out. You can ask
this subdivision,
questions.
actually, this plat that you're looking at right now has not been recorded. It was approved,
But it's not set in stone because it hasn't been
because
recorded.
it hasn't been recorded, and apparently the property's been sold from this property owner that had it at this time in
But
July.
this being zoned R18 right now, as it is, they could come and develop it as R18.
Yeah.
If this developer fell through, it's zoned R18 and someone else could come in
Yes,
if we didn't change the zoning to twin homes.
correct.
So what's allowed in R18? Will you clarify?
Single-family homes, basically, is it. You cannot have duplexes. You cannot have twin homes. Single-family homes, churches, schools.
Just so if we approve, if the text amendment that we just went through is approved, and if we change the zone on this property, the developer could come in and build duplexes on this property. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes,
Okay. That's what I just wanted to clarify, because we are not guaranteeing that twin homes are built on this property
We're
by,
making it possible.
we're making it possible.
you're right. And if the text is changed, the zoning is changed, they could come in and build single-family homes too.
Right. They could do this plan similar to this and build
Yes.
single family homes, correct?
Yes, yes.
They just aren't allowed under the current code to build twin homes, which is why we were changing the text.
Exactly, yes.
And can you just clarify something for me? So you said that we would have, if we approve this and they put together a neighborhood, we will have to approve that no matter what?
If the R210 is changed to allow twin homes as a permitted use, it's then a subdivision, basically. So yeah, it would have to come back to you anyway.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have a process question. I feel like we're a little bit the cart before the horse, because we're recommending that the city council look at the definition of R210. And then we're also trying to approve something R210. We're not even sure if they've approved the definition of it yet. I almost wish they would go to the city council
It's a good
and then
point.
come back to us with this item.
The point is, we're making a recommendation for this as
Yeah,
well. We're
so,
gonna approve it.
right.
Recommendation.
But I think, can I jump in for a second? Because I think maybe Jake, you're thinking the same thing. It's not an invalid point though. If you feel like you want to, if you felt like you were okay with approving an R210 zone here, as long as it resulted in twin homes, and clearly the developer's intent is to do twin homes, or they wouldn't have asked for that change. And you wanted to send that change on first to make sure that happened. If that doesn't happen, then you're not interested in the R210, then you would want to continue your hearing on the R210 zone change and only send forward your recommendation on the text amendment and see how that plays out first. Is that where you're headed?
Yeah, and I say that partially because I feel like there's a little angst about the zoning.
Sure.
So if let the community work that over and see if it's a zone we're interested in, if we actually go with that, and if the community council approves it, and then have this discussion, because that would tell us more.
I think it's a great point because I don't feel like I can recommend something. If the text amendment doesn't pass, then I've just recommended they change this to a zone that doesn't allow twin homes. And then they are forced to build, they're not forced to, but then they might resort to build duplexes. And
Well,
I mean, but we don't know what they're going to do,
No, it
but they
would
wouldn't
still-
be able to build twin homes.
correct. They would still remain R110, R18 until.
Well, we could forward both of the, if we forward both of these right now, it's possible that the city council does not pass the text amendment, but passes the zone change. And then we end up with a property that cannot have twin homes built on it.
Correct. That is true.
But can we forward it with subject to the approval of the text amendment?
No.
All right.
No.
So again, I feel like we're just doing too much at once.
In theory, like tonight, you recommended favorably to change the text. Now, I hate to even say this, say for instance, you said no on the zone change. I guess I'm thinking of the city council. If the text was not approved to allow twin homes by the city council, and that application was viewed first, and then the zone change was right after that, or a month after that, or 2 months after that, the applicant at that point could withdraw their application and keep it as R18. Did I just confuse everybody?
So just a clarification here. So let's say we didn't, I mean, do we have to forward a yes or no, or can we just say we don't want to forward anything because we want to hear about the text amendment first?
They have made an application. You need to act on the application.
So we would have to continue it.
You'd have to either
another
yes or no
date.
or continue, yes.
We could continue
You
it.
could
though.
continue it, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Approve, deny, well, recommend favorably, recommend negatively, or continue. Yes.
Is there a time limit for how long we continue it?
We should probably give them some kind of indication, I think.
If you're continuing an item, you continue it to a date specific. Now, that means that so that everyone that's involved doesn't have to guess at when you're going to talk about this again. What you would do is we'll do a bunch of fast math, if Zach's not already doing it in his head, about how long it takes to get something like this text amendment through the city council. So we could tell you if you're going to forward it or table it, this is the date you'd want to shoot for. And that's when you'd be able to know what the council had done with your text amendment recommendation. And if it doesn't happen by that time, and you get to that date, you come back to it again and say, we're going to continue this one more time to this date or whatever. That happens all the time. It's not untoward at all.
To give you a time frame on that, the soonest it would be scheduled for a public hearing with the city council would be the second Tuesday in February, because that's where they're slotting now. And that's if we act on it tonight.
And so I better,
the second meeting, second meeting, which is the third Tuesday of February.
and so that I better understand that option. If we do something like that and continue it to a given date, the applicant could move forward with the R18 and just start building, start the process that's required to build under R18, or they could wait and see what happens with the R210. Right?
Yeah, they would have to record that plat first, though, because the plat's not been recorded. But yes, that is correct.
Okay. Well, we need to have a public comment about this item. So hopefully with some of our questions, it maybe answered some of your questions. But anyone that would like to make a public comment towards this item? Oh, the applicant. Yeah.
I just want to make it clear, John Rudd, 75 West, Town Ridge Parkway, Sandy, Utah, with J&G Investments. My understanding, though, of the text amendment, that is not specific to this site. We are just pushing it forwards because it's necessary for us, because what we want to do with the site is not what I think people in the past wanted to do. We want to meet the requirements under the general plan and the recommendations of the general plan and the mall report recommendations. And I just want to make that clear. There usually needs to be a purpose for a continuance. I feel like we're making while we're the ones doing the heavy lifting to have the city probably adapt to probably what they intended to do in the past, or maybe what they think should happen. They are separate in the sense that the text amendment is necessary in general. But for us, we're willing to do that heavy lifting because we want it for this parcel, because we don't want it to go to a multifamily rental community. And we are going to build it. We're not selling this. And sometimes you'll do a development agreement with the city and things of that nature to ensure requirements. I know that we're premature and that's not applicable here, but I am saying that we want to do what the general plan says in the future needs to happen, what increases values, increases revenue to the city, but increases the land values around, instead of doing what a lot of people wanted to do in the past, which is duplexes and things of that nature. I can assure you, if you had walked in the duplex that before used to be attached to this, it's a parcel in front, you would have been astounded at what people were living in. But no owner is going to live in that, but they're going to allow someone who's renting to live in that and take advantage of that. We are changing a trend of cities, at least where that happens. And in Murray, they're in extreme need of this, especially in this area. So while I sit here, we want to get going. If you read the general plan, it's not good for land to sit there and people to live in certain conditions. For us, we want to get going. We don't want there to be waiting. They both need to be determined on their own merits, but we can make a commitment and a guarantee to the city that and I understand the legalities of conditions for this, but I can put this subject to approval of what we are going to build and what is provided. The specs and plans are a condition of these structures, but we are going to build twin homes. And we don't want to wait if we don't have to. And we think that they need to be decided on their own merits. And we have the right, and we will, if it's not approved, we'll withdraw our application before the city council can change the zoning without the text amendment, because we don't want to be, that's not in our best interest of what we want to do here. We're just willing to do the heavy lifting up front, understanding that it needs to be done anyways, but it meets our purpose for this particular property. Hopefully that makes sense. We are the opposite of the worry of most people. We are not trying to come in and do something that is the highest revenue generating for the investor or someone that's trying to develop it. There's a need here for twin homes, not duplexes, and you've got apartments and you've got single family homes. You do not have any twin homes around here, and you need them because people need that. They need more space. They need a nicer structure. But under the general plan, we have a requirement that we need to use space better. And so this meets a neighborhood much bigger and much more applicable for the residents that you need and are trying to attract to be able to have affordable housing, but it's not cheap housing. It's affordable and it's very nice. And so I just want, as someone here that's trying to see if we can push this forward, I'm just encouraging that we do that for that purpose. And if there's any questions, I will take them. But I am the one involved in this. This is not being sold to anyone, and it's not being developed or built by anyone else. We are doing that. So if approved. So, and if no questions, I'll sit down.
I just wanted to say, I appreciate what you said. You have to understand that all these guarantees you're making, I appreciate. I completely believe that you would do them. I believe you would withdraw your application. But, our job here is to look at all these things and understand what could be possible. That's why we're looking at this zone change and we're thinking what could happen, right? You could die tomorrow and that property could go to somebody else and they could have a completely different idea. And so we have to take that into consideration. I believe you. I believe you're going to build twin homes, but I mean, there's not a guarantee. There's no guarantee. We can't make a motion here and say, you guarantee us this stuff. And so I just wanted to say that That's the concern there.
I would agree with you. The only thing that I can guarantee is that no matter what I say, the requests are within the guidelines and recommendations of the general plan. And I think that's where we have the obligation is.
Well, let me speak to that too. I mean, the current zoning matches the general plan. And just because the general plan says that this should be, there's many zones within the general, if this is a low density or medium density, there's lots of zones that fall in that. That is not a blank check for a property owner to come in here and say or demand that their zone be changed because the general plan allows it. I think we often use the word, the general plan allows this and or supports it. I think we actually use support a lot. Maybe allow is probably a better word, because just because this property would be allowed under the general plan or supported under the general plan to be RM15, that doesn't mean that it should be. And so you're using the general plan as a supporting document or, supporting to make this change. And it does support that, but that doesn't mean it should be changed. And I think that's the same with the small area plan. The small area plan is, giving us some guidelines here, but that doesn't mean everywhere in that zone or that area on the small area plan should be changed to allow duplexes.
Sure. I agree. That's why you're here.
I want to piggyback that a little bit, because I feel like maybe your response, and I want to make sure we say this, it isn't personal to you, because the small area plan, we put money and time into, and we appreciate it. And it does suggest what you're recommending. And we do support twin homes. It's, we're trying to respect the process and make sure everyone involved has the same ideas and the same opinion. And the city community council has the same opinion on it and is able to hear the public's opinion. And it is something we should be moving forward, not just what we think we should be moving forward on. And so it's, unfortunately, you kind of are stuck in the middle a little bit, but it's not personal.
I accept that. Thank you so much. And there are things we want to do. That power line needs to be, this area needs attention. And the residents can only do so much, but if we're willing to come in and do what we're saying, we need to raise those power lines. There are things that we really need to do here and develop this area so that, I guess, not that we have to do it on the general plan, but it'd be nice to meet the requests and the recommendations. So anyways, I appreciate all the time, and hopefully it's a breath of fresh air that we want to do something different than what maybe people in the past wanted to do. But I do recognize there are concerns and questions. We appreciate the city working with us, and so.
Mr. Rudd, and you're under no obligation to do this, but I think that some residents did express some questions and some concerns about density, and you don't have to address it, but it may not be a bad idea to do it either. Some of their questions around the density that you might envision in that area.
Yeah, the area it's a wonderful area. I had, in all transparency, I've never driven in the area before in my life. I grew up and went to Hillcrest High School in Midvale, which is kind of pretty close to Murray. And I didn't expect that when I made the turn off of State Street that I did, that there would be that neighborhood there. It's a really quiet, sweet neighborhood, and it does have some diversity, just not the diversity we're proposing. It's got multifamily nearby Braywood, and then it's got some non-conforming lots with some old uses like that duplex and single family home that I walked through that borders this, that has to be refurbished, but it can't be, you can't knock down these dilapidated structures because they're non-conforming and it creates problems. So they have to be rehabbed, because I would love for them to be knocked down. But nevertheless, this area is really sweet, and there's some homes that have been redone, and it's such a nice little area, but it's got a lot of open space, And so for us, when I saw that, I was surprised, and I think it needs this diversity here where you continue with the open space. We're talking between 4 and 8 residences for this property. We're not talking, 15 to 20 to 30. And we're most likely, we're talking young and older families, couples and families. There are demographic reports that you have with rentals, and I lived in a rental too. I'm so grateful for them. But we just didn't want to do that because this area had that type of development close by. And so anyways, yeah, I do understand the need to be careful of increasing density so much. And these lots, just to bring attention to it, or what we're proposing, if you do the math, we're not around the 5,000 range. We are above 6,600 feet for each one if you average it. So these are big. These are big lots that we want to do. We want to do something nice that's not too dense, and we just thought this is a need. So it's more of an opportunity with a need than just an opportunity, is what I'm saying. But that approaches the density. Hopefully that answers some questions.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Since
We are refurbishing the duplex in the home, just so you know, to make it beautiful and livable and nice. Anyways. Yeah.
Okay, we can have further discussion, but we are in the public comment portion. So if anyone would like to make a public comment, please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Kimball Ward, 6548 South 130 West in Murray. I just want to voice my agreement with the committee members who have expressed concern about changing the zoning of this specific property prior to the amendment being passed. I think the text amendment, I don't have any issue with the text amendment that was considered in the last item, but I do have an issue with this being changed prior to that happening. And I have a little bit of an issue with this being changed prior to having a plan, because it opens the door to anything. My specific concern, I live right on the street that abuts to what would become the cul-de-sac, and having 8, when I grew up, I lived in a neighborhood that had 3 cul-de-sacs nearby. Every single one of those cul-de-sacs had 4 family dwellings on the cul-de-sac, and every single one of them had parking issues and complaints and contention between the neighbors around parking. And to consider putting in 8 dwellings on one cul-de-sac feels very, I just think the parking would be a big concern of people who would want to live there, and of me who lives right next to that property. Street parking on a cul-de-sac gets limited because you squeeze all these properties. The front of the property is very small relative to the size. And so if you have 2 parents and a child of driving age, 3 cars per house, but now you have 8 dwellings, that is a concern of mine. So I appreciate the committee members who have expressed the idea that the text amendment needs to be approved prior to considering the zoning change. I also feel very strongly that the zoning change is not appropriate for this neighborhood, especially if a cul-de-sac is what's being considered. I think this kind of zoning change is appropriate where there's a through street where parking is going to be less of a concern than it would be on the cul-de-sac. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, come up.
Hi, Amelia Kirkham, 123 West Fayette Avenue. My house is the corner that would come in off of 130. My concern definitely is traffic, like he had just mentioned too. I mean, we're going from 4 single-family homes, let's say 8 cars, maybe 3 if they have adulting kids or teenagers. You put in 8 units, you're up to 20, 24 or more. 2 cars on the street, that's 16 in a cul-de-sac. Anyone knows that's not possible. I've lived in this house for 25 years. I have come face to face with 3 surveyors in the past 25 years, wanting to buy this property, wanting to develop it, and every time they get shut down. And the reason they get shut down is because they want to put either multi-units, townhomes, condos, and the city has always come back and said no. And I love them for that. They know what our community is. They want single family in this area, and they've said it 3 times in the past 25 years. Single family only. They get shut down every time. One of the things that I had heard from coming from city council type meetings was if they put in more units than single family, and I'm talking duplex or twin, more than single family, they needed to put a road and knock down either the house or the twin little condo, the twin house that they just remodeled, they were supposed to knock that down and put a road through so a fire truck could access and get through there. Because the city said if they put anything more than single family and there was a fire hazard, getting a truck in and out of there is complicated because of the small nature of how many homes would be in there. And so they were saying, oh, you can knock down one of these homes and they can put a home through onto Jefferson. Well, now that hasn't happened. They've remodeled these homes to rent them out. And I think it needs to say single family. I would appreciate it. I know I've talked with a lot of other neighbors. They feel the same way. I know the city has come out and wants to do changes in the future to Winchester, down Jefferson, and that affects our neighborhood too. That's maybe 2035, and that's awesome. I'm for change. I'm for single family homes back there. Great, bring it on. New neighbors, new people. I don't mind 8 cars coming in and out. I don't even mind 9. But 24? No way. That is way too compact in that area. And I get that the city has plans to put sidewalks in the future down Jefferson. That's going to change things. I've read where they have the planning committee where they want to put stuff along Winchester's and maybe do stores and more things like that. That is going to bring a lot of traffic. It's great. It's change. Maybe our city needs it. But putting a whole bunch of homes back there with people driving in and out is too much. I would really prefer for the city council to, they want to pass R210, fine, whatever. But for this property, I say single family only. Please, please keep it to a minimum with the traffic. Thank you.
Any other comments?
My name is Dale Bennett, Benchmark Engineering, 9138 South and State Street in Sandy. I just wanted to make a comment, and I think you guys already know the answer, but if a traffic engineer, I'm a civil engineer and a surveyor, but if a traffic engineer came and did a study on this, it would be very low addition to it. I'm confident of that. Also, the fire department in most cities, if you have over 30, then they want to require 2 access points. This is extremely low density when it comes to the number of homes on a cul-de-sac. It's well within the requirements of any fire department or in most of the city, including your city. So I'm not sure where she was coming from on that. Just wanted to make that clear as a licensed professional engineer. So thank you.
Are there any other comments?
I'll be short. Casey Johnson, 6545 South Jefferson Street. So a lot of things were addressed. Greatly, the concern is the traffic. He just stated that they've done studies and whatever, but this subdivision that they would do would require 16 spots. It's stated in what it says. So they automatically have to have, when I stated doubling from 210 to R6, maybe that was slightly exaggerated, but we are doubling this if we grant twin homes. So it went from 4. I live, my fence line is this fence line. So that makes it for me, I walk into my backyard, I'm going to see just a wall of houses now, not 3. Well, it still would be 3, but it's different now. I have doubled the families that live next to me rather than it would be 3 families. Now I'm going to have 6. That's not real pleasant to me. The pictures that were provided earlier, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't see one good looking house on that. They are an eyesore to me. I don't want to live. If I wanted that, I'd move uptown to where it's dense. This is bringing more density to our neighborhood. When I spoke earlier on sidewalks, what Amelia said, that was true. I was in the same meeting when they stated if they did this, because I've been in multiple meetings on this particular development, because there's been many developers trying to develop it and they've all been shut down for a lot of the reasons of what has been spoke about. The pictures, so now I got sidetracked. I guess in short, I I don't know how you guys would feel if there was an empty lot next to you and all of a sudden it doubled in space. Because I moved to Murray. I'm from Holiday. I've been in Murray in this house for 10 years. The sidewalks on Jefferson, like somebody stated, there are no sidewalks. The concern isn't necessarily for the density of that specific subdivision. It is for the entire neighborhood. So we've got kids. My house, I have a radar street. There's not 7 out of 10 cars are doing over 25. I'm trying to personally slow people down because there's kids playing in the street. They have no sidewalks. So we add 8 more families into this neighborhood. Where are they going to play? They do have their subdivision, but they will venture out onto Jefferson. The safety of our children, when we add this population, doesn't help us. We're trying to stay as a single family dwelling neighborhood, which we should. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? No? Okay. See.
Can I come back up and clarify one thing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, because this is important. I forgot. So I've spoke with Mr. Jonathan Rudd, and I spoke with Susan a couple days ago. So my concern with this is on this screen, we had a plot of somebody that didn't even own this property trying to develop. That parcel development was from a boardwalk, and I've talked to Jonathan about boardwalk. He just stated in here that he owned that property. He bought it in July. I have paperwork, legal documentations from Boardwalk Enterprises that come and try to get property from me to sign over my 3 feet of my whole fence line. To me, as a homeowner, I'm going, who the heck owns this? What's going on? I have a party that has no interest in this property at all. And now I'm looking at it in the conversations I've had, tried to steal about 3,000 square feet from me. That makes no sense. So as me, the homeowner, I'm going, what is going on here? And when I spoke to Jonathan the other day, he clarified, we have nothing to do with this company, but then why were they trying to do this after you've purchased it? They surveyed it. They spent money on survey. They're the ones that drew up that plan that was brought up here. And that was passed, I think, 2 months ago, to where for me, now that I know Jonathan owns it, but there's just all this ambiguity that I'm like, who actually owns it? When was it purchased? Which is, I think, public record, but I'd have to go research it. But this is all came about this past week for myself. So these are concerns I have, and we haven't seen the development, what they're going to try to do. And we can't base that off of something that a mystery company that has no interest in this property, when we're showing this slide, that makes no sense. It kind of gives us an idea of what he's going to do, but what is he going to do? He seems like a great guy, an honest guy, but this company that's been approached me, they're full-blown shysters, so I have no idea. Do you kind of see where I'm coming from on this? I know you guys know who it is, but it's,
I don't know who it is.
you know, well, he's the one. Anyway,
Yeah,
thank you. I just, that's my concern as the neighboring parcel to this development. I have great concern.
Sure.
Thank you.
speak one more time? As the professional
Yeah. Just state your name and address.
Dale
for the
Bennett,
minute.
Benchmark Engineering, 9138 South State. Okay, this thing that he's talking about with the land, trying to steal land, have you heard of boundary by acquiescence? Have you guys heard of that? Okay, there's an issue with the fence. They can leave it to where it is, or they were just going, okay, the fence has been there 20 years. This is a public survey. You can actually go online. You can go get it on the county surveyor's website. It's public and it's free. So go ahead and get it. But it's very clear what that is. Has nothing to do with anybody shysting anything. Has to do with boundary by acquiescence. I've been a licensed surveyor for 30 plus years and been doing this for the surveyor of the year back in a long time ago, and been on the surveyor's board and everything. But the fact is, and we file more surveys here than just about everybody, and we're just small, but we file a lot of surveys. That is an issue that comes up quite often, but it's boundary by acquiescence, and they don't need the property, but the property has acquired boundary by acquiescence, but they don't need it to make this thing work. They got plenty of space. So I was just wanting to make it clear to you guys that what he said is not anything to do with shysting or stealing property. We have been involved with the previous landowner, and we were the ones that did all the engineering, all the surveying and on it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thank you.
Thank you.
just to.
So like, was he affiliated with Boardwalk then? Because he just said.
You can talk to him after the meeting.
I want to just clarify, and this will help, because I was trying to understand why someone was going around after someone else owned it. There was a recording of the plat process that was in process when it was purchased, and he was trying to finish that. We weren't doing that, but he was trying to get that done, even though we had purchased it, because he was in the process. I guess they didn't think they could do what they were doing, so they were just trying to do the plat that they had proposed. And then we actually put a stop to that for this. So when we talked to him and said, oh, no, don't do that. We own this, and we just, no need to continue on with that. So I think that's why he had approached people. He's right. That's not us. And I don't have any relationship with them other than they were continuing on with that process, and Benchmark's involved because they were doing the surveying before for them. And since they already knew it, we had them just change it up for us. So anyways, just clarification. They're not here, and I don't have any relationship with them other than I don't want them to be, I would want to at least make sure I'm transparent that although we don't have a relation with them, that's why I think he was still approaching people. So sorry. Just thought I'd say that.
Thank you for that clarification. I will close the public comment portion for this item. And I think since we've heard from the applicant, let's just take some staff maybe answer some of the questions from the public.
Okay, I don't want to beat a dead horse and go over the same thing over and over and over, but just to add a little more insight on the boundary line and the acquiring by acquiescence, the fence line not being in the same place as the survey, bottom line. When the subdivision was approved in July and the previous owner went to record it, they had the plat done up, we send up a preliminary paper copy of the plat to the county to have them double check it to make sure all the boundary lines close up and there's no gap in property or they're not overlapping property lines. When that was sent up, this is when this was brought to our attention with the boundary line discrepancy between this property and
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah. And that's when the representative from Boardwalk, the previous owner, went to him and tried to approach him to resolve that issue with the boundary line because the county would not record the plat until that had been resolved. So they weren't trying to pull a fast one. They weren't trying to do anything. It just didn't come to light until that transaction was further down the road, basically, in process.
And so it was resolved.
Well,
it wasn't recorded.
No, it was not resolved. And then in the meantime, they sold the property to Mr. Rudd.
Which
Boardwalk never owned it, correct?
Yeah. They did, actually.
Susan, so.
I'm sorry, they were the representatives, yes. They represented, yes, but it was a different owner than Mr. Rudd. Yeah, right. Let's see. When I think I went over this before, when a subject property is being developed, we as a city can require the improvements to be done on that property. So if this were approved and they came back later for a subdivision, previous like it was, or a new one, we would require curb gutter sidewalk for this new property. We can't require it on Jefferson because this subject property does not have frontage on Jefferson.
But I think the improvements on Jefferson are in the public works plans of when they will in the future, right?
Yes. Well, yes and no. There are, maybe Danny could answer more on that. But my understanding is, yes, it is where possible. But in order to get that done, curb gutter sidewalk, the whole length of Jefferson, would require that we would have to take some of the property owner's frontage to get it. And whether or not that would fly, we're not going to go in and condemn the property and take it. City doesn't do that, but we would have to, come to some kind of agreement to buy the property, purchase it, acquire it through that process. And whether or not the political will of the elected officials want to do that is up to them. I think it would be nice for everybody, but again, it would require that some of the people give up some of their property.
Okay, can you speak to the cul-de-sac meeting fire requirements?
Yes, the fire department did indicate, they didn't actually express any concerns, but to clarify that, if there are power lines that are hanging lower than would accommodate a fire truck, they will have to be raised. They will have to be relocated. They will have to do anything otherwise. The Public Services Department will not sign off, nor will the fire department unless it meets those minimum standards.
Well, I think specifically that a cul-de-sac is standard wide enough to have a turnaround for.
Yes.
Regardless of whether there's 4 lots
Yes.
or 8 twin
Right.
homes.
It doesn't matter what it is. Having a cul-de-sac will be
Yes, yes.
will be safe for a fire turnaround. They don't need an additional access.
Correct.
That is meeting all the codes, and the fire department has reviewed that.
They will review it, but in order to give a favorable recommendation, our engineering department, it's same with planning and zoning, we have to make sure that it would fit, that it would accommodate public streets minimum standards. So that requires a certain radius, certain width for the right of way, for the cul-de-sac and the road. And yes, we would not sign off on it unless it did.
And we would review that again at a site plan.
Yes, absolutely. And the fire department, absolutely, if it doesn't meet the regulations, it will not get approved. Let's see, I think that was all. It was referred to about this property being shot down several times over the last 25 years. That very well could be true. I didn't do a history on it, but the property owner does have the right to apply for the zone change.
And
can you?
We don't know. We don't have a project here that we're comparing to other
Right.
projects in the past. I mean, for all I know, the person that applied in the past was trying to get the apartments extended out that are next to them. We don't know what project. So we're not comparing apples to apples right now.
And,
We don't
and
know.
at this point, it's water under the bridge. I hate to say that. I don't mean, I'm being very respectful to the citizens and to the applicant both. But if we get an application for someone who wants to apply to change it, we have to take that through the process, which is why we're here. I think that was all, unless I'm missing anything.
I think traffic came up many times, but we don't have a project. And when we do have a project, then traffic is.
Yeah. So Mr. Bennett was correct in stating that a project, when there are 30 single-family dwellings or 30 units or more, it does require that there be a second access out. This does not come to that level of requirement, so we can't require a second access. So a cul-de-sac is sufficient for this property. Also, the city engineer in the zone change, he does review that. And if that were a concern to him, he would have made a recommendation or a comment about it. And he was not concerned about the traffic for this type of a proposal.
To change the zoning.
Correct, yes.
I think one thing that was kind of brought up was this idea of that we're changing the zoning first. And I don't, can you speak to?
I kind of did mention that before. You know, they've applied for a text amendment, and coincidentally, at the same time, they applied because they have intentions for this property, but they couldn't develop this property for the twin homes unless the text is changed. They could have applied in a few months after, but it just happens to be they applied for both at the same time.
I guess my question is, there are times in the general plan where there are things that are brought to the city's attention because somebody wants to, it was an oversight or something that we didn't notice or see or something. So this isn't the first time that something like this happens simultaneously, that there's like a change to a code or change to text and an application because we didn't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like sometimes we don't know that there's a hole in what we're trying to do until somebody wants to develop it that way. So I know that it does feel uncomfortable to have a text amendment happening at the same time as a zoning change, but I think it's not that uncommon.
Correct. Yeah.
In citywide, in people applying for things and then recognizing that we would need to change, you know, that there's a piece missing that we would need to correct at the same time that a zoning is being applied to be changed.
Yes, that is.
I mean, I can think of other instances where it has happened that those two things have happened simultaneously.
You are exactly right. And I can tell you, there's been several times over the years that we've had similar requests, but the applicant just didn't want to go through the text amendment process, where Mr. Rudd is wanting to do that. But we've had several people say, oh, it requires a text amendment now, and they just, don't want to pursue it at that point. So,
but it's not that.
It's not that uncommon.
Yeah,
correct.
we're not like trying to do something outside of the norms of the normal procedure. This is something that happens. We would change a text amendment at the same time as a zoning request because those two things coincided to happen at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And to be honest, the R210 should have been changed years ago. Originally, when it was written, probably should have had twin homes in it. But I think someone did mention something about the parking. So back to this photo, the upper right photo, that is very similar to what Mr. Rudd could do if it were approved. And you can see there's 2 driveways and 2 garages. It would easily accommodate 2 vehicles in the garage and probably 2 in the driveway. So
So technically, they would be overparked for their requirement because they would have 2 garage parking and 2 off-street.
Right. And I just feel moved to say that those are things we discuss in details when a project's brought before us.
Right.
Yes.
So we wouldn't approve a project that we didn't feel had appropriate parking. But we just don't have a project at this moment.
Yeah, it would have to meet our regulations for parking, or we.
No matter the zone.
Yes.
Whatever zone we were
Yes.
discussing.
Yes. Yes.
Well, are there any other questions to answer? Are there any other questions for the commission, or I'll bring it up for discussion?
I'd make one point
Or a
that
motion.
I don't personally see that there is a bad reason, but rather maybe even some good rationale for the city council to see both the previous text amendment and this application at the same time.
Yeah, I that's my feeling. I agree. I don't think that there needs to be. They just like we've considered them at the same time and can consider them independently because they are independent, and we would want them to be decided on their own merits. It doesn't mean that they can't move forward together at the same time. And I mean, if the city council, they would vote on the text amendment and they would vote on this, and it doesn't mean that they need to have one before the other. They would be considering the same thing, and that's how I feel. I don't feel like there needs to be a delay.
So you're kind of saying, like, my desire to give the city council and other community members attending that meeting the opportunity to talk through twin homes to make sure they're getting to the same conclusions that we are would occur.
Yeah.
Whether they had both items on the agenda or not.
Right. Yeah. I just feel like they would, that each of these things would be decided on their own merit, and having them presented separately or delayed I don't feel like that strengthens the merit of one or takes away the merit of the other, that they would be decided independently. So I don't see a big reason to hold one for the timing of the other. That's how I feel.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
I'm fine. Go ahead.
I make a motion that we forward a recommendation of approval to the city council for their requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the properties located at approximately 6560 South, 130 West, from R18 low density residential to R210 low density residential.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Hacker to forward a recommendation of approval to the city council for the requested amendment to the zoning map designation of the property located at approximately 6560 South, 130 West, from R18 low density residential to R210 low density residential. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Commissioner Lowry. Okay, we can take a
Okay,
vote.
Mr. Pearson,
No.
Ms. Makevich,
I mean, it's a little bit relevant. Oh,
I'm sorry. Please be respectful.
oh, that's. I guess I'll say no.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
and Ms. Patterson.
Yes. So motion is approved to move forward to the city council where they will also hear the same presentation. You'll also have an opportunity to go and make public comment there. Thank you so much for being here and participating. Is there any other business from staff?
Thanks. Just a reminder that the next meeting that you have will be our meeting where we elect a chair and vice chair for the year. So, and thanks for your time as chair, Mayor. You've done well, and Ned as vice this year. Thank you again. So,
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Will you say the time?
Wait a second, I was looking
What
for
time
it.
is it?
Sorry, 8:51.
Is there a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
thank you all.